The WWE Hall of Fame is a yearly tradition at WrestleMania times, and though I know we're still a fair few months away from WrestleMania, I feel like we are soon going to be getting announcements for induction into the Hall of Fame. If not, by the time this video comes out, we probably already had one just to make this seem backdated. But for me, I'm going to go through 7 people that I think are going to be in the Hall of Fame this year. Like, I've not gone massively unrealistic. I'm not going for people who are just big, massive, studded Hall of Fame things. I feel like I've gone slightly realistic, but obviously you guys can be more of a judge of that than I can. Obviously, I'm biased. So yeah, these are my picks for the 2026 Hall of Fame. So I'm going to go with my headliner last, but obviously I'm going to start with a woman who is already announced at the Hall of Fame. She was announced to be inducted back in September at WrestlePalooza. It is, of course, Stephanie McMahon. I would have her very clearly be inducted by Triple H. That makes like the utmost sense in my opinion. I don't think another McMahon is going to come back into WWE and do it. Maybe Shane will do it, but I can't see it being Vince or anything like that. But I think the easiest choice here is that it'll be Triple H. But she is a former one-time women's champion. She had it for I think it was about 146 days she had it for. She's a former SmackDown general manager. She was co-leader of the Alliance back in 2001 when she took over ECW as part of the Invasion angle. She's co-leader of the Authority in what is arguably one of the best that kind of authority figure led storylines probably of all time. I would say. I know that the Mr. McMahon and Stone Cold Steve Austin story is like the number one, but for me, I loved the Authority storyline. I thought it was really, really great. Those 2013 to 2016 ish or 2015. I thought they were awesome. I really enjoyed that. The Survivor Series 2014 match is awesome. She's also a massive, as we know, advocate for women's wrestling. I jokingly say fairly often that Stephanie McMahon created women's wrestling back in 2015. But yeah, she obviously does everything she can for women's wrestling, which is awesome. And she isn't going to be the only time someone on this Hall of Fame class is known for advocating women's wrestling. But yeah, I think Stephanie, I feel like it's one of those ones where you can either hate it or kind of agree with it. I'm the one of agreement. She is important to wrestling. Also, you got to remember that the Hall of Fame class, to get into the Hall of Fame, the bar is pretty low, considering that The Rock's mom is in there and Queen Sharmella's in there, or Booker T's wife is in. So, I don't disagree at all with the fact that Stephanie McMahon should be in. She has played a massive part in wrestling. But on the other side, I can understand why people might not like it. But yeah, for me, I couldn't agree more. I probably wouldn't if she hadn't have been pre-announced, I wouldn't have put her in this. But as she's already been announced, I can't really leave her out, kind of. After that, I have the Hardy Boys to be inducted by Lita. I think it makes the absolute most sense in my opinion. Maybe have a Dudley do it if you want to go down that route, but I think Lita is probably the best position to be the inductor of the inductor. Either way, the person who inducts the Hardys into the Hall of Fame, obviously they're an 8-time WWE Tag Team Champions, 1-time NXT Tag Team Champions. I am including TNA in this just because obviously we have the agreement, so I feel like the more accomplishments we can mention, the better. So they're a 7-time TNA Tag Team Champion, a 1-time WCW Tag Team Champions as well. You have feuds with the Dudley Boys, Edge and Christian, Eminem, and over in TNA they have Decay, they have the Broken Universe, which is absolutely awesome. And you think of some of the best matches they've had. Obviously TLC 1 and 2 come to mind, as well as other fantastic tag team matches, but they are like the number one tag team people think of, I would say, when anyone says tag team wrestling, especially to casual fans. If you go, who do you think of when it comes to tag team wrestling, most people, more likely than not, who aren't just full-on fans all the time, will most likely say either the Hardy Boys or probably the Dudley Boys, which is awesome. And yeah, I feel like it's probably long overdue that they go into the Hall of Fame, but at the same time, if they've been wrestling for other companies like AEW, like TNA before the agreement, they just won't go in just based on that, simply enough. But yeah, it makes the most sense to do it now. Obviously, they were champions in WWE late last year, sorry. So yeah, I feel like it just makes the most sense to put them in now. So every year they try and induct a female wrestler. I know that Stephanie is already going in for this one, but I feel like having a proper full-on wrestler as well for the women's division makes the most sense. And for me, it's someone who probably should be in the Hall of Fame already, to be fair, and someone that I was a big fan of when I was younger, especially like going back and watching stuff as well. I've been a big fan of hers, and it is Victoria. I would have her be inducted probably by Trish Stratus, as it's probably her big feud for WWE, but she's a two-time WWE Women's Champion, a five-time Knockouts Champion, and a one-time Knockouts Tag Team Champion, with feuds against, let's say, Trish Stratus, Molly Holly, Lita, and Madison Rayne in TNA. And yeah, just again, someone who people say is a big influence for them in wrestling nowadays. And yeah, she's had some great matches as well. The match that always sticks out of hers for me is the hardcore match at Survivor Series 2002 that she had with Trish. I thought those two really, we're kind of doing stuff that women didn't normally do back then. So then, there was blood, there was a lot of weapons and that kind of stuff. And yeah, it was just a really cool match. And yeah, for me, it makes a lot of sense for Victoria to go. I said she probably should have been in already, considering the fact that Stacey Keibler's already in, Tori Wilson's already in. And these are women that, though they have earned their spot in the Hall of Fame, they're not women's champions, and I feel like Victoria, as I said, influenced a lot of women in the division, so yeah, I feel like it's a long overdue induction for Victoria. After that, I have Finlay going into the Hall of Fame to be inducted by Becky Lynch. Becky Lynch made the most sense because of Irish. Obviously, Finlay's a big advocate for women's wrestling. And yeah, I feel like it's just a good fit for Finlay, in my opinion. Unless you have Hornswoggle do it or something, which I can't imagine them doing. So I feel like Becky makes the absolute most sense here. But Finlay is a one-time WCW television champion, a one-time United States champion in WWE. He was the Belfast Bruiser in WCW. He was part of the introduction of Hornswoggle. He obviously has David Finlay and Uriah Connors as his sons in wrestling as well. And as I said, he was a big advocate for women's wrestling in WWE, especially in the early 2000 kind of days where he was training and a trainer or a coach of sorts of the women, so they can just not do just the basic strikes and clotheslines and all that kind of stuff. They're actually doing proper wrestling moves, and training them to have just really good matches. Even with the lower time that they have, the matches were still fairly good considering where women's wrestling was in the late 90s and going into the early 2000s. So yeah, it makes a lot of sense again. I know it's very similar to Stephanie as far as the advocate for women's wrestling goes, but yeah, Finlay's done a lot in his own right. I don't know, obviously before WCW, I'm not sure a lot of what he was doing there, but I'm sure he had a big career outside of WWE and WCW. So yeah, it just makes a lot of sense. I feel like he's someone who could go in and not be a massive tier, but I feel like he's been just as influential in today's wrestling as he was back then and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I'd say I don't really know a lot about Finlay. It just made a lot of sense to put him in. Next going in for me is more of a callback to ECW, but I have Sabu going in to be inducted by Rob Van Dam. You could have Paul Heyman quite easily do it, but I feel like Rob Van Dam is one of his top feuds and top partners, so it makes a lot of sense to be the whole damn show. But yeah, he's a two-time ECW World Champion, one-time ECW Television Champion, a one-time FTW Champion, three-time ECW Tag Team Champion, and yeah, some of his best feuds against the likes of Terry Funk, where he had that brutal looking barbed wire match. Taz is one of his most fiercest rivals in ECW, so yeah, Rob Van Dam, again, one of his top partners, the partner he won the three, I think at least two or even three of the Tag Team Championships with. John Cena, when ECW became part of WWE in the 2006-2007 times. I really enjoyed the feud that he had with John Cena, and over in TNA he did some stuff and had some great matches with Abyss. The Barbed Wire Massacre match is probably one of the early matches that I watched to get into the extreme sides of wrestling that I enjoy so much now. So yeah, for me, he's a massive, probably one of the biggest names to come out of ECW. And yeah, I feel like if ECW is going to be part of the Hall of Fame, like we've seen with Paul Heyman, like we've seen with the Dudley Boys, it makes sense that Sabu would eventually go in. And yeah, it just, for me, I feel like, again, it might be seen as long overdue, but I feel like now would be a really good time to put him in as well. So just before we get to the headliner, which I'm pretty sure you guys will probably know who it is. But we have the Immortal Moment. Obviously, we saw it debut last year when they put in Brett versus Austin from WrestleMania 13. And I'm going to stick with the whole WrestleMania matches thing, because I'm not sure whether or not it is just for WrestleMania matches or WrestleMania moments or outside of that as well. It wasn't really clear when they explained it. But Either way, it is Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels from WrestleManias 25 and 26. Obviously, the first match, WrestleMania 25, on the 5th of April 2009, where they had an absolute classic. Probably considered one of the best matches in WWE. To then almost top that, I feel like the 25 one is probably better than the 26 one, in my opinion. I don't feel like people would massively disagree with that. But then on the 28th of March 2010, they had the rematch, which was obviously for Shawn Michaels' career, where we saw Shawn Michaels retire, not properly, but I feel like people still see it as Shawn Michaels' retirement because we don't talk about the other match that he had after that. But yeah, these are two of like the best WWE matches like ever. Just an iconic feud between each match. And yeah, I mean, for me, I wasn't very sure who to have induct the match because obviously CM Punk inducted Austin versus Brett and he didn't really have anything obviously to do with the match. So here I'm going to go with Cody Rhodes to induct the thing. I feel like he probably knows the match inside out. He's probably watched it multiple times. He's a traditionalist like that is Cody. So I feel like it makes a lot of sense. I mean, other than that, maybe if Triple H doesn't induct Stephanie, he could do this one instead. I know making Triple H be the center of attention, but yeah, I think this will have to go into Immortal Moments. If not, they do the matches individually. But yeah, for me, I just put them both together. They were both a year within each other, so it just makes a lot of sense to just, to do it that way, to do it as them both and do it as just a big feud. Obviously, the WrestleMania 26, the running up that hill video package is iconic, like one of my favorite hype packages for a match ever. So yeah, it makes a lot of sense for me to put this into the Immortal Moments section of the Hall of Fame. And finally, we have the headliner for the Hall of Fame 2026, and for me, it is John Cena. For me, he just has to go in this year. I know it seems like right now that they're probably not going to do it, which is a massive shame. They might do it next year, which I really don't want him to. I'd much rather John Cena go in this year than go in Saudi Arabia. Plus, I have my own idea about who's probably going to go in the Hall of Fame for Saudi Arabia next year, but maybe that's a video for next year. But as far as the person that inducts him, it has to be Randy Orton, in my opinion. He was the only person who was absent from the John Cena Farewell Tour for the majority and the last match as well. I feel like that might be by design if it's going to be him who inducts him into the Hall of Fame. And yeah, I feel like no one's going to know John Cena better outside of the ring as well as in the ring than Randy Orton. So yeah, that is who I would have inducted, but it wouldn't shock me if it was Triple H. It wouldn't shock me if it was Kurt Angle. It wouldn't shock me if it was CM Punk. I would have said obviously Adam Copeland, but he is clearly with AEW and he's not coming back to anything to do with John Cena. People please need to get over that. But John Cena's accomplishments, I mean, where do we start? He's a 14-time WWE champion. He's a 3-time World Heavyweight champion, 1-time Intercontinental champion, 5-time United States champion, 4-time Tag Team champion, 2-time Royal Rumble winner, a Money in the Bank winner, a Grand Slam champion. His best feuds with the likes of Edge, CM Punk, Randy Orton, AJ Styles, as well as many others. Making his debut in 2002, some of my personal favourite matches of his being the Unforgiven TLC match with Edge, the Royal Rumble match with AJ Styles, as well as more recently the Crown Jewel match with AJ Styles. It was a great match within itself, and then considering AJ Styles is now retired, that match feels even more important. The matches with CM Punk at Money in the Bank 2011 and Raw in 2013. The match with JBL at Judgment Day and the I Quit match, I think, is a fantastic match. I feel like people have forgotten about, not like on purpose, because it's very hardcore, very bloody. I feel like people have forgotten about it, as well as many main events and many iconic WrestleMania moments. Yeah, there is not enough. As soon as you say John Cena in the Hall of Fame, people are going to go, of course he goes into the Hall of Fame. He has probably the best accomplishments and the best accolades to be in the Hall of Fame that isn't like Ric Flair or Shawn Michaels or something like that. So yeah, for me, it just makes the most sense that Cena goes in this year, mainly because I don't want him to be going in Saudi Arabia. But yeah, no, for me, he would 100% be the headliner. I don't think Stephanie McMahon will be the headliner, even though she was announced first. But yeah, no, Cena is just one of the biggest legends in WWE history, and honestly, I kind of look forward to his Hall of Fame speech, but kind of don't, because I know it's probably going to make me tear up. So, but yeah, he would be 100% my headliner for the Hall of Fame. So those are my picks for the WWE Hall of Fame 2026. Do put down in the comments below not only what you think of my class, but also some people you would put in the Hall of Fame as well. I'm sure there are some older and, you know, more golden era people that could go in this year, and it's a simple case of I'm not that well acquainted with that past, so I've gone with the past that I absolutely know and people that, yeah, I feel like for me have absolutely earned their place into the Hall of Fame. But yeah, do let me know in the comments below who you would pick and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, thank you very much for watching. There's a lot of stuff coming up on the channel over the next few weeks. There is the second episode of the Retrospective, where I'll be covering WWE in 2002. There is Elimination Chamber coverage as well. There's going to be my top 10 matches from Elimination Chamber and my top 10 Elimination Chamber matches, as well as, you know, predictions and review of the event as well. So do subscribe and look out for those coming up over the next few weeks. Yeah, and thank you very much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one.